My phone buzzed at 3:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, a day that would forever change the course of my life. It was Timothy Walsh, my lawyer, and his voice was urgent. "George," he said, "you need to hear this now. Someone was trying to sell your house with forged documents." My blood ran cold. Impossible. Only my daughter Victoria had the authority to do such a thing. Then it hit me. A sickening realization. It had to be her. I'm George Bennett, 68 years old, a retired engineer, and I had trusted the wrong person. 3 days after that call, I uncovered a plot far more horrifying than I could have imagined. Victoria wasn't just selling my house. She had planned to lock me away in a nursing home to cover up her crimes. But she didn't know I was already prepared. For 26 years, I had given Victoria everything. She was born in 1982, my only child. When my wife, Helen, died, Victoria was just 12. I raised that little girl with my own 2 hands, working double shifts at the engineering firm, saving every penny. I wanted her to have piano lessons, ballet classes, everything I never had growing up. "I promise I'll never let you go without," I told her every night, as I tucked her into bed. Her small hand would squeeze mine. "I know, Daddy," she'd whisper back. I kept that promise, maybe too well. Victoria excelled at everything. Honor roll student, piano recitals where she'd wear those white dresses. I sat in the front row at every performance. Other parents would nod approvingly. "Single father," they'd whisper, "doing such a good job." I was proud, so proud I couldn't see what I was creating. I sacrificed everything for Victoria's future. College tuition at Harvard cost me $180,000. I sold my truck, took out a second mortgage, worked weekends until my back ached. But watching her graduate was worth every sleepless night. At Harvard, Victoria met Eric Carson. He seemed like a good kid, a business major. They married in 2008. As a wedding gift, I gave them my house, worth $520,000. A whole house. Most fathers give china sets. "Dad, you don't have to do this," Victoria said. But her eyes were already calculating. "I want you to have security," I told her. "This is what fathers do." But they wanted to live independently. I understood. Young couples need their space. I bought a smaller place and visited when invited, which wasn't often. Victoria would call when she needed money. Car repairs, home improvements, medical bills. I never said no. Fathers don't say no to their children. "You're so generous, Dad," she'd say, her voice always sounding distant through the phone. I thought that was maturity, her growing into an independent woman. I thought wrong. The phone calls became less frequent. The visits stopped altogether. I told myself she was busy building her life. I had no idea what she was really building until April 2024, the day that changed everything. I had a mild stroke. Nothing major, the doctor said. But Victoria acted like I was dying. She rushed to the hospital, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, I was so scared," she sobbed. I spent 5 days in the hospital. Victoria visited every day. She brought flowers. She held my hand. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my daughter back. "You can't live alone anymore, Dad," she said on my last day there. "Eric and I have discussed it. We're moving in with you." My heart warmed. Family, taking care of family, the way it should be. "Just temporarily," she added quickly, "until you're stronger." Victoria had me sign a power of attorney form. "It's just for convenience, Dad, so I can help with your medical appointments, handle your bills if you're not feeling well." The form looked official. Legal jargon I didn't fully understand, but Victoria explained it patiently. She was my daughter. I trusted her completely. Eric had been unemployed for 6 months. The stress was showing on both of them. I thought having them live with me would help everyone. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Victoria and Eric moved in during May 2024. At first it felt wonderful having family around again. The house had been so quiet. Now there was laughter, conversation, life. But slowly, things began to change. Victoria installed new locks on all the doors. "For security, Dad," she explained. "There have been break-ins in the neighborhood." She set up cameras throughout the house. "We want to make sure you're safe if you fall," she said. But I noticed the cameras pointed toward my bedroom, my study, not the entrances. Then came the driving restrictions. "Dad, Your reflexes aren't what they used to be. Victoria said after my doctor's appointment. We don't want you getting hurt. She took my car keys. Just until you get stronger. My bank statements started arriving in Victoria's name. I'm helping you organize your finances, she said. It's too much stress for someone recovering from a stroke. The house stopped feeling like mine. I needed permission to use my own kitchen. Victoria would find me making coffee at 6 a.m. and frown. Dad, you're up too early. Go back to bed. I felt like a guest in my own home. Worse than a guest. Guests can leave. But I didn't realize the cameras weren't protecting me. They were watching me. By summer, I noticed money disappearing. My electric bill jumped from $120 to $340 per month. Eric gamed all day on his new computer setup. Victoria ordered packages constantly. Designer handbags, expensive makeup. When I questioned the $5,000 missing from my checking account, Victoria had an explanation. Dad's medications, house repairs, the new security system. But I hadn't needed any medications that cost $5,000. The house repairs were Eric hanging one picture frame. You're imagining things, Dad, Victoria said when I pressed her. Her voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Memory problems are common after strokes. I wasn't imagining anything. My mind was sharp as ever. But Victoria started treating me like a confused old man who couldn't tie his own shoes. Did you take your pills today? She'd ask every morning, even though I'd been managing my own medication for decades. Do you remember what day it is? She'd quiz me like I was a child. I felt smaller each day. Less important. Like I was fading away in my own house. But I wasn't gone yet. I still had enough sense to make a phone call. I needed to know exactly what I had signed. I called Timothy Walsh from my bedroom phone while Victoria was shopping. I need you to review some documents, I told him quietly. I had to know what authority I'd really given her. Meeting Timothy Walsh at his office felt like a secret mission. I told Victoria I was visiting my old friend Harold Peterson. She barely looked up from her phone. Walsh spread my power of attorney documents across his mahogany desk. He read carefully, adjusting his glasses. I watched his expression change. George, this is a standard limited power of attorney, he said finally. It gives Victoria authority over your medical decisions and bill paying. But here's the important part. You can revoke it any time. My heart skipped. Revoke it? As long as you're mentally competent, which you clearly are, you can cancel these powers immediately, Walsh explained. Would you like me to prepare a revocation document? I hesitated. Part of me still hoped I was wrong about Victoria. Then came the birthday party. My 68th birthday. Victoria insisted on a big celebration, inviting all our old neighbors and friends. It felt like a strange spectacle. She hovered over me, helping me cut the cake, guiding my hand as I opened gifts. Dad's a little frail after his stroke, she'd tell guests, her voice dripping with false concern. It was all a performance, I realized. A way to show everyone how caring she was, and how incapable I had become. After the party, when the guests had left, Victoria and Eric started discussing my future. We've found a wonderful place, Dad, Victoria chirped, holding up a glossy brochure for Sunny Meadows Senior Living. It's got excellent care, and you'll have so many activities. Eric nodded enthusiastically. You'll be so happy there, George. It's for your own good. They spoke as if I wasn't in the room, as if my opinion didn't matter. They were planning to move me out, to warehouse me. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. The next morning, the call from Timothy Walsh came. George, I just received a call from Pinnacle Investments. They're asking for clarification on a sales contract for your property. My hands started shaking. What contract? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. A sales contract for your house. George, the closing is scheduled for next Friday. He paused. The contract was signed by Victoria, acting as your power of attorney. But that's impossible, I stammered. She doesn't have the authority to sell my house. Walsh's voice was grim. George, I reviewed the power of attorney you signed. It doesn't actually give Victoria authority to sell real estate, only medical decisions and bill paying. If Victoria signed that contract without your explicit consent, she's committed fraud. Real estate fraud is a felony. I hung up and sat on my bed in the dark. Everything made sense now. The cameras weren't for my safety. They were to document my supposed mental decline. The medication wasn't for my health. It was to make me appear confused. The nursing home wasn't for my care. It was to get me out of the way, while they sold my house and stole my life savings. They had planned everything, every detail, every lie. But they made one mistake. They never thought I'd be smart enough to prepare my own plan. I sat alone in my room after the party ended. The house was quiet, except for Victoria and Eric celebrating in the kitchen. I could hear them laughing, clinking glasses. They thought they'd won. I pulled out my cell phone. The old one Victoria thought was broken. I'd been hiding it in my dresser drawer for weeks, keeping it charged with an extension cord behind my nightstand. I called Timothy Walsh again. "The contract you mentioned," I said quietly. "Can it be stopped?" "Absolutely," Walsh replied. "If Victoria signed it without your consent, the entire transaction is invalid. But George, we need to act fast. The closing is scheduled for next Friday. 5 days. Victoria was planning to steal $565,000 in 5 days. What do I need to do?" I asked. "First, we file the power of attorney revocation I prepared. That immediately cancels any authority Victoria thinks she has. Second, we notify Pinnacle Investments that the contract is invalid. Third, we contact the police about the unauthorized financial transactions." I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Power. "Do it," I said. "All of it. George, once we start this process, there's no going back. Your relationship with Victoria will be permanently damaged." I thought about the 47 pages of bank statements, the forged signatures, the lies told to my face and behind my back, the plan to warehouse me in a nursing home while they spent my life savings. "There's no relationship left to damage," I said. "I'll file the papers first thing tomorrow morning," Walsh promised. I hung up and made my decision. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. That night, I gathered evidence. While Victoria and Eric slept, I searched the house methodically. I knew where Victoria kept her important papers, in a leather portfolio in the dining room credenza. Inside, I found everything. The signed contract with Pinnacle Investments, email printouts discussing the sale, a deposit slip showing $56,500 already transferred to Victoria's personal bank account. The down payment. She'd already taken the down payment. I photographed everything with my hidden phone. I copied the forged signatures on the bank documents. I found receipts for all her luxury purchases. The Louis Vuitton purse, Eric's gaming equipment, expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, all paid for with my money, while they told me I couldn't afford basic necessities. But the most damning evidence was a handwritten note in Victoria's own handwriting. Timeline: Dad in Sunny Meadows by October 15. House closing October 18. Cash available for investment property by November 1. Investment property. They weren't just stealing my house, they were using my money to buy real estate for themselves. The note was dated 3 days after my stroke, before I'd even left the hospital, before any discussion of my declining health. She'd been planning this since the moment I was vulnerable. At that moment, I understood what real betrayal felt like. Not disappointment, not sadness, pure cold rage that started in my chest and spread through my entire body. But I didn't let the anger consume me. Instead, I let it focus me. I had 47 pages of financial evidence, photographs of forged documents, email trails proving premeditation, and the legal authority to stop everything. Tomorrow, I would stop being the victim and become the prosecutor. I spent the rest of the night organizing my evidence. Every bank statement in chronological order, every forged signature circled in red pen, every unauthorized purchase highlighted. By sunrise, I had built an airtight case. I called Timothy Walsh at 8 a.m. sharp. "File everything," I said. "I want her arrested." "George, are you absolutely certain? Once we involve the police, this becomes criminal, not just civil." "She stole $28,000 from me," I replied. "She forged my signature dozens of times. She's trying to steal my house. If that's not criminal, what is?" "You're right," Walsh said. "I'll have the revocation papers filed within the hour. The police report will be submitted this afternoon." At 9 a.m., while Victoria was getting her nails done and Eric was playing video games, I walked out of the house. I drove my neighbor's car. Mrs. Patterson had been keeping it running for me secretly when she noticed I wasn't driving anymore. I went to the bank first. I need to speak with the manager about fraudulent activity on my account, I told the teller. The bank manager, Jennifer Martinez, reviewed my statements with growing alarm. Mr. Bennett, this is clearly financial elder abuse, she said. We're required to report this to Adult Protective Services. Good, I said. Report it. Next, I drove to the police station. Detective Williams took my statement and examined my evidence. This is one of the most thorough cases I've seen, he said. Your daughter is in serious trouble. The following day, Victoria was arrested. The police arrived at my house, and I watched from my window as they led her away in handcuffs. Eric was also taken in for questioning. The house felt eerily quiet again, but this time it was a peaceful quiet. The closing on my house was immediately halted. Pinnacle Investments was informed of the fraud, and the $56,500 down payment was frozen. The legal process was long and emotionally draining. Victoria and Eric were charged with multiple felonies, including elder financial abuse, real estate fraud, and forgery. Victoria tried to claim I was mentally incompetent, but my detailed records, Timothy Walsh's testimony, and Detective Williams's investigation quickly debunked her lies. The handwritten timeline note was particularly damning. Eric, facing his own charges, eventually cooperated with the prosecution, testifying against Victoria in exchange for a lighter sentence. In the end, Victoria was convicted. She received a sentence of 5 years in state prison. Eric, due to his cooperation, received 2 years of probation and a substantial fine. The judge ordered full restitution of all stolen funds, which meant Victoria's personal assets were seized to repay me. It wasn't about the money for me, not entirely. It was about justice, about reclaiming my dignity and my life. My granddaughter, Sophie, Victoria's daughter, was caught in the middle of all this. Her father, Eric, was able to secure full custody. He was genuinely remorseful for his part in the scheme and dedicated himself to providing a stable home for Sophie. I made sure Sophie knew she was always welcome at my house. She's a bright, kind girl, and I wanted to protect her from the fallout of her mother's actions as much as possible. The case garnered significant media attention, highlighting the growing problem of elder financial abuse. Detective Williams started a senior fraud prevention program, using my case as a textbook example. This is how financial abuse typically develops, he'd say during seminars. Gradually, by someone the victim trusts completely. I became a volunteer speaker for the program, sharing my story with other seniors who might be at risk. The warning signs are isolation, unexplained financial changes, and family members who suddenly become overly concerned about your mental health. I'd tell audiences. People would approach me after presentations. My son has been asking a lot of questions about my bank accounts lately, they'd say. Should I be worried? Trust your instincts, I'd tell them. If something feels wrong, investigate. You have the right to control your own money until the day you die. The local newspaper wrote a feature story about elder financial abuse. They interviewed me, Timothy Walsh, and Detective Williams. The article mentioned that cases like mine were increasing as baby boomers aged. The biggest surprise is often who commits these crimes. The article quoted Detective Williams. It's usually family members, not strangers. But there was something I still hadn't told anyone. Sophie started asking harder questions as the months passed. 9-year-olds understand more than adults think. Grandpa, why did Mommy take your money? She asked during one of our Saturday visits. I thought carefully before answering. Sophie would grow up knowing her mother was a convicted criminal. She deserved the truth, but age appropriately. Sometimes when people are scared or worried, they make bad choices, I told her. Your mom was worried about money, and she took some of mine without asking. That's against the law. Like stealing? Yes, like stealing. Sophie nodded solemnly. In school, they taught us that stealing is wrong, even if you really want something. That's right, and it's still wrong, even if you take from family. Eric was raising Sophie to understand honesty and respect. She helped me organize my pills into weekly containers, something Victoria had done to control me. But Sophie did it to help me remember. Can you teach me how to balance a checkbook? Sophie asked one day. Daddy says it's important to know about money. I smiled. Eric was making sure Sophie would never be naive about financial matters. Of course, I said. Knowing how to manage money is one of the most important things you can learn. We spent that afternoon going through my bank statements. The honest ones, not the ones documenting theft. I showed her how to track expenses and savings. She was going to grow up different from her mother. That was Eric's gift to her. But there was one final thing I needed to say. A year after Victoria's conviction, I wrote a letter. Not to her. We haven't spoken since the trial. But to anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. I keep this letter in my safe deposit box at the bank. My final testimony. If you're reading this, you might be facing what I faced. A family member who claims to love you while systematically stealing from you. Someone who calls it caregiving when it's really control. I want you to know, kindness doesn't mean being naive. Setting boundaries isn't selfishness. It's self-respect. Sometimes real love means saying no to the people closest to us. You have the right to control your own money until the day you die. You have the right to live in your own home. You have the right to make your own medical decisions. If someone tells you otherwise, get help. Call a lawyer. Contact the police. Reach out to neighbors you trust. You are not powerless, no matter what anyone tells you. Age doesn't make you incompetent. Needing occasional help doesn't make you helpless. Fight for yourself. Fight for your dignity. Fight for everything you've built over a lifetime. You have the right to protect what's yours. I signed it. George Bennett, survivor, not victim. If you're listening to this story and you're in a similar situation, remember what I learned. You're not alone, and you're not powerless. There are people ready to help. Laws designed to protect you. You don't have to accept abuse from anyone, even family. Contact Adult Protective Services. Call the police. Reach out to neighbors you trust. Document everything. Keep records. Take photos. Most importantly, trust yourself. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I'm sitting in my garden now as I finish this story. The sun is setting, birds are singing. I'm free, and I'm safe in my own home. I made the right choice. I fought back when it mattered.